The sky burned with the dying embers of Earth's last stand. Towers of smoke curled into the heavens, mixing with the shattered wreckage of human warships that had once defended the planet. Dominion dreadnoughts, vast, obsidian leviathans, hovered in the upper atmosphere like carrion birds, their energy lances still glowing from the slaughter they had unleashed. General Adrienne Falk stood atop the ruins of a fallen skyscraper, her armored gauntlet clenched into a trembling fist. Blood dripped down her temple, mixing with the soot that covered her once pristine battle armor. Below, Dominion patrols marched through the ruins of New Berlin, rounding up the last survivors like cattle. Their towering insectoid frames moved with eerie precision, their black exoskeletons gleaming under the smog-choked sun. Earth had fallen. The United Terran Federation, the last governing body of humanity, had surrendered 3 hours ago. The broadcast had been transmitted across all remaining human colonies, Admiral Howe's voice, hollow with defeat, declaring unconditional submission to the Dominion's rule. Most of Earth's military leaders had been executed on live feeds to drive the message home. The Dominion had crushed every human fleet, obliterated every planetary defense system, and left the world to rot under their heel. But Falk wasn't dead, and neither was humanity. A small earpiece crackled to life beneath her helmet. A familiar voice, gravelly, calm, and sharp as a knife, spoke. "Falk, you alive? Elias Voss, the ghost of the wastes." "Not sure yet," she muttered, shifting behind a pile of rubble to avoid the gaze of a passing Dominion patrol. "Where are you?" "2 clicks south. We found something. Get to us. Now." Falk exhaled sharply. There was no time for mourning, no time for anger. If Voss had found something worth living for, then she would listen. With careful movements, she descended from the ruined skyscraper, sticking to the shadows as she made her way through the broken streets. Bodies lay scattered across the ground. Civilians, soldiers, Dominion corpses. The Dominion didn't take prisoners unless they were useful. The rest were discarded. As she moved, she spotted Dominion enforcers herding civilians into containment zones, makeshift camps built from the wreckage of fallen buildings. The war had ended, but the suffering was only beginning. After 20 minutes of navigating the ruins, she found the rendezvous point, a collapsed metro station leading into an underground tunnel. As she slipped inside, she was greeted by the sight of 3 figures standing in the dim firelight. Casimir Zhao, Elias Voss, and half a dozen hardened warriors who had once led armies of their own. She didn't need to ask why they were here. The fire in their eyes told her everything. The Dominion thought humanity was finished. The Dominion was wrong. The underground hideout reeked of blood, gunpowder, and desperation. Falk's boots crunched against shattered glass as she approached the firelit gathering. Rough-looking soldiers, scared, armored, and radiating the lethal calm of men who had seen too much, watched her in silence. Elias Voss leaned against a rusted steel beam, his face half hidden in shadow. His rifle, an old but deadly M92 Gauss carbine, rested against his knee, his fingers tapping idly against the barrel. Across from him stood Casimir Zhao, the infamous warlord of the Red Blades. His crimson battle armor was dented and scorched, but his eyes burned with cold fury. "You're late," Voss said. "You're lucky I showed up at all," Falk replied, stepping closer. "What the hell did you find?" Zhao folded his arms. "Hope." Falk exhaled sharply. "I don't have time for riddles, Zhao." Zhao nodded to one of his men, who pulled back a tarp covering a rusted table. Beneath it lay a battered holoprojector. The soldier activated it, and a faint blue light flickered to life, revealing the image of a Dominion supply convoy. 3 Dominion transports, Voss explained, loaded with weapons, armor, and rations. They moved through the ruins of Old London every 2 days. Falk studied the image, her mind already piecing together possibilities. Escort, a few infantry units, light security. They think the war is over, so they're getting sloppy. Zhao leaned forward. If we take those transports, we arm 100 men, maybe more. Falk looked at the faces around her. Hardened warriors, survivors, fighters with nothing left to lose. The Dominion had taken their home, their families, their future. Now, it was time to take something back. ####. Night fell over the ruins of Old London, shrouding the broken city in darkness. The convoy approached along a crumbling highway, its massive Dominion crawlers humming with alien energy. Tall insectoid guards marched alongside the vehicles, their black exoskeletons glinting under the pale light of a Dominion recon drone. They never saw the humans hiding in the rubble. The first explosion tore through the lead transport, sending it spiraling onto its side in a cloud of fire and debris. Before the Dominion could react, the Crimson Pact struck. Falk led the assault, her rifle barking as she dropped the first Dominion soldier in her sights. Joe's red blades moved like wraiths, slipping through the wreckage with their plasma-forged blades, cutting down alien warriors before they could sound the alarm. Voss, always the tactician, had set up snipers along the ruined rooftops. His sharpshooters picked off Dominion officers with deadly precision, turning the battlefield into a slaughterhouse. The battle was over in minutes. The last Dominion soldier fell, his chitinous skull crushed beneath Falk's boot. The Warlords stood among the burning wreckage, their breath heavy, their hands slick with alien blood. The first kill had been made. The rebellion had begun. The Dominion did not mourn their dead. They did not pause to grieve or reflect. They responded with fire. Less than 24 hours after the attack on the supply convoy, the skies above Old London darkened with Dominion dropships. Plasma bombardments turned entire districts into smoldering craters. Buildings collapsed in roaring infernos, burying survivors alive. Those who weren't killed outright were dragged from the rubble and executed in the streets. The message was clear: resistance would not be tolerated. But the Dominion had made one fatal mistake. They had taught humanity how to hate. In the depths of an abandoned underground railway station, Falk, Zhao, and Voss studied a grainy recon feed transmitted by one of their remaining drum scouts. The footage showed Dominion enforcers marching through the ruins, rounding up survivors, and herding them toward processing camps. "They're trying to break us before we become a real threat," Voss muttered. "Standard Dominion protocol. Hit hard, isolate pockets of resistance, and erase them before they spread. Then we spread faster than they can erase," Zhao growled. "We don't fight this war like soldiers. We fight it like butchers." Falk's jaw tightened. "You mean like terrorists?" Zhao met her gaze without hesitation. "I mean like humans. The Dominion fights with overwhelming force. We fight with fear. We fight dirty. No rules, no honor, no mercy. Just death." There was no argument. They were past the point of fighting for morality. This was survival. And survival meant making the Dominion afraid. The Crimson Pact struck again 3 nights later. A Dominion patrol unit, 24 insectoid warriors, accompanied by 2 towering war beasts, marched through the ruins of New Paris, sweeping for signs of resistance. They moved cautiously, scanning the rubble with thermal sensors. They never saw the tripwires. The first explosion ripped through their ranks, shredding chitin and sending Dominion bodies tumbling in every direction. Before the survivors could react, shadows moved in the ruins. Zhao's red blades struck first, dropping from the rooftops with plasma-forged daggers that sliced through exoskeletons like paper. Falk's sharpshooters followed, picking off Dominion officers with ruthless precision. The war beasts roared and charged forward, their massive bladed limbs tearing through debris, but they ran straight into Voss's trap. A cluster of hidden mines detonated beneath their feet, vaporizing them in a storm of fire and shrapnel. By the time the dust settled, every Dominion soldier was dead, and the Crimson Pact had already disappeared into the shadows. The Dominion retaliated again, executing hundreds of civilians in response. But it did not stop the resistance. It fueled it. For every innocent slaughtered, 10 more joined the Pact. The Warlords weren't just fighting back. They were turning Earth into a nightmare the Dominion couldn't control. The Butcher's War had begun. The Dominion still believed Earth was under control. Their forces were stretched thin across the galaxy, ruling over hundreds of enslaved worlds. They had pacified species before, beaten them, broken them, turned them into obedient subjects. Humanity was supposed to be no different. Omega Bastion proved them wrong. It was the Dominion's strongest stronghold on Earth, a fortress city built atop the ruins of old-world Paris, shielded by impenetrable energy barriers, lined with anti-orbital defenses, and housing thousands of Dominion enforcers. It was a symbol of their dominance. No human force could breach its walls. No army could storm its gates. So the Crimson Pact didn't send an army. They sent ghosts. The infiltration began at midnight. Zhao's red blades moved first, slithering through the sewer systems that ran beneath the city, using long-abandoned tunnels to get close to the Dominion shield generators. His team carried nothing but knives, silenced firearms, and a deadly patience honed through years of war. The first Dominion sentry never knew he was dead. Neither did the second, or the third. Zhao's warriors moved through the shadows, slitting throats, planting explosives, leaving bodies in their wake. When they reached the shield generator, they didn't just destroy it. They hijacked it. Fox engineers, working under cover of darkness, rewired the Dominion's own technology. Within minutes, the energy barrier meant to keep invaders out was now a cage, trapping the Dominion inside their own fortress. Then the real attack began. Fox forces struck from the east, hitting the main entrance with overwhelming firepower. Plasma mortars, scavenged Dominion railguns, and repurposed tanks from human scrapyards blasted through the outer walls. The Dominion fought back with brutal efficiency, their warriors moving in perfect formations, their energy weapons slicing through human ranks. But this wasn't a battle of strength. It was a battle of tactics. From the west, Voss and his shock troopers launched their own assault, using Dominion vehicles they had captured in previous raids. The enemy hesitated for seconds, just long enough for Voss's forces to rip through their lines. The Dominion, for the first time, panicked. Their commanders screamed orders into their comms, demanding air support, demanding reinforcements. None came. The Crimson Pact had jammed Dominion transmissions, cutting them off from their high command. By the time the Dominion realized they had been outplayed, it was too late. Dawn broke over Omega Bastion, but no Dominion banners remained. The last of the alien garrisons had been executed, their bodies tossed into the streets as a warning. The fortress, once an unbreakable Dominion stronghold, now flew a different flag. The Crimson Pact had won, and the Dominion finally understood what they were facing. Earth wasn't just rebelling. Earth was at war. The fall of Omega Bastion sent shockwaves through the Dominion's high command. A mere handful of human warlords, outnumbered, outgunned, and supposedly broken, had just done the impossible. They had seized the strongest Dominion fortress on Earth. The Dominion's response was immediate. A week later, the skies above Earth darkened once more. Dominion warships, sleek, obsidian vessels bristling with weapons, descended from orbit, moving in perfect, unbreakable formations. The Crimson Pact had been nothing more than an annoyance before. Now, they were a priority. The High Sovereign issued a single order: exterminate them. From their command center deep inside Omega Bastion, Foch, Zhao, and Voss watched the Dominion fleet through a stolen holographic interface. Dozens of transport ships were descending toward Earth, each carrying elite kill squads. "This isn't just retaliation," Voss muttered. "They're coming to wipe us out." "Then we let them come," Foch said. Zhao arched an eyebrow. "You're suggesting we let an entire Dominion army land. I'm suggesting we bury them." A grin spread across Zhao's face. "I like the way you think." The Dominion troops deployed with ruthless precision. Squads of elite enforcers, 10 feet tall, armored in living carapace, marched through the ruins, scanning for human survivors. Cybernetic hounds sniffed the air, searching for traces of the Crimson Pact. Orbital drones hovered overhead, mapping the battlefield in real time. But there was nothing. No resistance, no attacks, no movement. The Dominion grew cautious. The Crimson Pact had never run before. Why now? Then the first explosion hit. A Dominion command vehicle, rolling through the broken streets of New Berlin, was vaporized in a sudden, blinding blast. Then another, and another. Beneath the city streets, dozens of Crimson Pact saboteurs had spent days planting high-yield explosives beneath roads, buildings, even inside the sewer systems. As the Dominion army advanced, they were walking into a minefield. The second phase of the ambush began before the smoke cleared. From the rooftops, Voss's sharpshooters unleashed hell, armor-piercing rounds tearing through Dominion skulls, energy lances burning holes in their ranks. From the alleyways, Zhao's red blades emerged like demons, slicing through stragglers with ruthless efficiency. Then came the final blow. Falk, watching from Omega Bastion's control room, activated the last phase of the trap. Buried in the ruins were stolen Dominion artillery units, their targeting systems reprogrammed. With a single command, they roared to life, launching wave after wave of high-energy plasma shells into the trapped Dominion army. There was no escape. The extermination force, meant to wipe out the Crimson Pact, was being annihilated instead. By morning, the Dominion's greatest warriors were nothing but smoldering corpses. The Crimson Pact had turned Earth into a battlefield the Dominion couldn't control. The hunters had become the hunted. The Dominion had always ruled from above. Their fleets choked the skies, their warships cast shadows over enslaved worlds, and their orbital bombardments reduced entire civilizations to dust. Even on Earth, they still clung to their greatest advantage, space superiority. That was about to change. Deep inside Omega Bastion, Falk, Zhao, and Voss stood over a flickering holo-display. The orbital gate, a colossal space station hanging above Earth, was the last true chokehold the Dominion had on the planet. It was their command center, their supply hub, and the bridge that connected them to the wider Dominion Empire. Taking it would be impossible, so they were going to do it anyway. Voss leaned forward, his cybernetic eye glowing in the dim light. No ship we have can get close without being blown apart. Zhao cracked his knuckles. Then we go inside. Falk nodded. We hijack a Dominion transport, infiltrate the gate, and shut it down from within. There was no argument. The Crimson Pact had already defied the impossible. One more time wouldn't hurt. The stolen Dominion transport drifted toward the orbital gate, its hull scarred from battle, but still functional enough to fool the automated scanners. Inside, Falk and her strike team sat in absolute silence, their stolen Dominion weapons humming in their hands. As the ship docked, Zhao gave a single order. No alarms, no mistakes. The ramp lowered. The Crimson Pact stepped into the belly of the beast. The orbital gate was massive, miles of reinforced corridors, alien machinery humming in the walls, Dominion enforcers patrolling in perfect formation. But the Pact had done their homework. Zhao's team moved first, eliminating guards in brutal silence, leaving bodies hidden in the maintenance shafts. Voss hacked the station's security grid, rerouting Dominion patrols away from key areas. Every step forward was a calculated kill. When they reached the control center, Falk planted a single charge against the main power relay. The explosion tore through the station's core, sending arcs of electricity surging through its systems. The lights flickered. The station trembled. Then the defenses shut down. Down on Earth, human rebels watched in stunned silence as Dominion warships, once an unbreakable force, suddenly faltered. Their shields flickered. Their targeting systems went offline. Their formations broke. Then, from hidden bases across the world, human warships rose. They were old, rusted. built from scavenged Dominion tech and human ingenuity. But they were theirs. And now, they had an opening. Fawkes' voice echoed through every resistance comm channel. Hit them now. The first human warship unleashed a railgun volley that punched straight through a Dominion destroyer. Then another. And another. The sky, once ruled by the Dominion, burned with the fire of their dying fleet. Humanity had reclaimed the heavens. For the first time since Earth fell, the sky belonged to humanity. The Dominion fleet, once an unshakable symbol of their rule, was in chaos. The loss of the orbital gate had crippled their communications, disrupted their supply lines, and left entire squadrons stranded in Earth's orbit without reinforcements. But the war wasn't over. Earth was free, but the Dominion still controlled the rest of the Sol system. Titan's Grave, their largest military stronghold, loomed near Saturn, housing more fleets that could retake Earth if given the chance. The Crimson Pact wasn't going to give them that chance. They needed an armada. In the shattered ruins of old world shipyards, beneath the sands of Mars, and inside the forgotten bunkers of Luna, the remnants of humanity's greatest warships lay in ruin. Rusted, broken, forgotten. Until now. Zhao, standing atop a crumbling lunar outpost, looked down at the wreckage of the Indomitable, an Earth Federation battlecruiser long thought lost. You think this thing will fly? Voss knelt beside exposed wiring, running his fingers across the corroded metal. With some work? Hell yes. He turned to Falk, a rare grin flashing across his face. You said we needed a fleet. Here's our fleet. Falk nodded. Get to work. For weeks, the Crimson Pact worked without rest. Salvaged Dominion technology was fused with human engineering. Weapons were ripped from fallen warships and repurposed. Scavengers dug deep beneath Earth's crust, retreating engines and shield generators from buried Federation vessels. Zhao oversaw the combat crews, turning untrained rebels into disciplined naval officers. Voss coordinated supply lines, ensuring that every bolt, every power cell, and every ounce of fuel was put to use. Falk pushed the engineers harder than ever, demanding every ship be battle-ready in record time. What was once a graveyard of forgotten warships became something new, something deadly. 3 weeks later, the Black Armada rose. A fleet of battle-scarred dreadnoughts, frigates, and repurposed Dominion destroyers emerged from the darkness, engines burning hot. What they lacked in polish, they made up for in sheer ferocity. At the helm of the flagship Iron Wrath, Falk stared out at the void. Beyond the asteroid belt, Titan's Grave awaited, fully armed, fully operational, and prepared to annihilate any resistance. Zhao stood beside her, arms crossed. They still outnumber us. Falk smirked. Then let's make it feel like we outnumber them. Voss's voice crackled through the comms. All ships, weapons hot. Time to remind the Dominion why they should have left us dead. Engines roared. Railguns charged. Plasma cannons hummed. The Black Armada surged forward, cutting through the void like a blade toward Titan's Grave. The final battle for Sol had begun. The Black Armada cut through the void, engines burning bright against the darkness of space. Ahead, Titan's Grave loomed like a monstrous colossus, an immense Dominion stronghold bristling with weapon platforms, fighter squadrons, and planetary defense arrays. It was the last true stronghold in Sol, the heart of the Dominion's grip on the system. Taking it would be the Crimson Pact's greatest challenge yet, or their final mistake. Aboard the Iron Wrath, Falk stood at the bridge, her hands resting on the command console as she watched Titan's Grave draw closer. On the holomap, the Dominion fleet had already begun shifting into defensive formations, their warships moving like an unbreakable phalanx between the human fleet and the station. They know we're coming, Zhao muttered, standing beside her, his arms crossed. They knew we were coming when we took Omega Bastion, Falk said, and we still burned it to the ground. Voss's voice crackled over comms. We don't have time for speeches. We either hit them now or we die waiting. Falk turned to her crew. All ships, begin the assault. The battle ignited in an instant. The Dominion fleet opened fire first, hundreds of plasma lances streaking across the void, slamming into human warships. Shields flared, hulls groaned. Entire decks were torn apart as energy beams ripped through steel. But the Black Armada struck back. Railguns fired in synchronized salvos, their hypervelocity slugs punching through Dominion armor like paper. Missile frigates released volleys of high-explosive torpedoes, weaving between enemy warships, detonating inside their formations. The Iron Wrath led the charge, its main rail cannon firing a devastating shot that split a Dominion battleship in half, sending its burning wreckage spiraling into the abyss. But the Dominion still had the numbers. More warships poured out of Titan's grave, swarming the Black Armada. For every Dominion vessel destroyed, 2 more seemed to take its place. Then the Dominion's ace entered the battlefield. A Sovereign-class dreadnought, easily twice the size of the Iron Wrath, emerged from the darkness, its hull lined with thousands of glowing weapon ports. Its arrival sent a ripple of dread through the human fleet. "We can't match that thing in a straight fight," Voss warned. Falk gritted her teeth. "We won't. We take the station, and the fleet crumbles." She opened a direct channel to the strike teams. "You're up." While the battle raged outside, Zhao and his elite warriors launched their infiltration. Their stolen Dominion shuttle slipped through the chaos, docking onto the outer hull of Titan's grave. The moment the airlock hissed open, they stormed inside, cutting through Dominion defenders with brutal precision. Their mission was clear: take the command center, disable the station's defenses, and turn its own weapons against the fleet. The fate of the entire war now rested on the edge of a blade. And the Crimson Pact had never been sharper. Inside the corridors of Titan's grave, Zhao's strike team moved like phantoms. The Dominion had built this fortress to be impenetrable. The halls were fortified with living metal, guarded by elite enforcers, and patrolled by security drones with no need for sleep. But the Dominion had never fought warriors like these. Zhao's red blades struck with ruthless precision, slicing through enemy patrols before alarms could sound. Blades whispered through the air, cutting chitin and muscle. Silenced gunfire echoed in the dim corridors, leaving Dominion sentries crumpled on the floor before they could radio for help. Step by step, they carved a path toward the command center. Zhao wiped alien blood from his blade and tapped his comm. "We're closing in." Status. Outside, the battle was turning into a storm of fire and wreckage. The Dominion's Sovereign-class dreadnought was tearing through the Black Armada. Its energy lances sheared through human warships, ripping them apart in brilliant explosions. Each blast sent more of Falk's forces into the void. On the bridge of the Iron Wrath, Falk gritted her teeth as a massive shockwave rocked the ship. Warning sirens blared, and status screens flickered red. "We've lost the Retribution and the Dauntless." Voss's voice came through the comms, strained but still calm. "We can't hold this line much longer." Falk refused to blink. "We won't have to." "Zhao, tell me you're close." Inside Titan's grave, Zhao's team reached the final blast doors of the command center. It was heavily guarded. Dominion elites stood in rigid formations, their massive plasma rifles humming with power. Towering automated turrets tracked every movement, ready to rip intruders apart the moment they were detected. It was a death trap. Zhao grinned. "I like a challenge." His team moved. A split second before the Dominion guards could react, the first grenade sailed through the air, detonating in a flash of white-hot plasma. The shockwave threw the enemy ranks into chaos. The red blades charged, striking like demons unleashed. Zhao moved like a storm, his plasma blade flashing as he cut down the nearest guard. His warriors followed, turning the cramped hallway into a massacre. Dominion soldiers fought back with vicious strength, but they weren't prepared for the sheer ferocity of the attack. Within minutes, the last alien fell, its skull split open by Zhao's blade. Zhao kicked open the blast doors. Inside, Dominion officers turned in panic as he raised his weapon. 3 shots, 3 corpses. Zhao strode to the control panel and activated his comm. Falk, the station is ours. From the bridge of the Iron Wrath, Falk watched as Titan's Grave's planetary defenses turned inward, recalibrated by Zhao's team. A heartbeat later, the station's massive rail cannons fired. The Sovereign-class dreadnought, the Dominion's greatest weapon in Sol, took a direct hit to its reactor core. A moment of silence. Then it exploded. The battlefield changed in an instant. The Black Armada had been losing. Now, they were winning. The Sovereign-class dreadnought detonated in a blinding fireball, its shattered remains scattering across the void. The Dominion fleet, once an unbreakable wall of power, suddenly fractured. Their greatest weapon was gone, their command network in disarray. On every human warship, cheers erupted. But Falk wasn't done yet. She activated the fleet-wide comms. No mercy. We end this now. With Titan's Grave under Crimson Pact control, its planetary defense cannons roared to life, turning the Dominion's own might against them. Massive railguns launched hypervelocity slugs into the enemy fleet, tearing through their formations. The Black Armada pressed forward. Voss led the charge, his fleet cutting through the chaos, targeting crippled Dominion warships before they could recover. Fighters screamed through the void, weaving between burning debris, hunting down stragglers. On the ground, human rebels, watching from Earth, Luna, and Mars, saw the impossible unfolding before their eyes. The Dominion was losing, and humanity was winning. Inside Titan's Grave, Zhao stood in the Dominion Command Center, watching the battle unfold through a flickering holo display. The remaining Dominion officers, still alive but beaten, knelt before him, their weapons discarded. Zhao walked up to the highest-ranking officer, an insectoid warlord with burning red eyes. The Dominion commander hissed, defiant even in defeat. "Kill me, human. It won't matter. The Dominion will return. More ships, more warriors. You cannot win." Zhao tilted his head. Then he raised his plasma blade and sliced the alien's head clean off. As the corpse crumpled to the floor, Zhao turned to his team. "Broadcast the message. Let the whole Dominion hear this." His soldiers activated the station's communication array, overriding every Dominion signal in the system. Seconds later, every surviving Dominion warship received the same broadcast. A live feed of Zhao, standing over the dead commander. His face bloodied, his blade still dripping. His voice was cold, unwavering. "Earth is ours. Sol is ours. If you value your lives, run." It wasn't a threat. It was a fact. The Dominion fleet broke. Without leadership, without their dreadnought, without Titan's Grave, their morale collapsed. Ships turned and fled, their captains choosing retreat over annihilation. One by one, the Dominion forces warped out of the system, abandoning Sol. By the time the last ship disappeared into the abyss, silence fell across the battlefield. For the first time in decades, there were no enemies left in human space. Falk, standing on the bridge of the Iron Wrath, exhaled. The war was over. But Zhao, watching the Dominion ships vanish, grinned darkly. "We should chase them." Falk turned to him. Zhao wiped blood from his blade. "They think they can run. They think we'll just sit here, rebuild, and wait for them to come back stronger." His grin widened. "I say we take the fight to them." A long pause. Then Falk nodded. Voss smirked. The Crimson Pact wasn't just fighting for Earth anymore. They were coming for the whole Dominion.